Hello, I'm Kirsty and I am an occupational therapist and also somebody who believes that they are experiencing long COVID, thinking that I might have had COVID in January, and I've had problems with my breathing and fatigue since then. I have already had existing fatigue issues in the past and obviously have worked with people with multiple sclerosis where fatigue is a main symptom of that. I asked in one of the long COVID support groups if it would be useful for me to do a series of YouTube videos on how to do some of our everyday activities in an energy saving way. So I'm going to start with drying my hair. Just a disclaimer, I don't often do that. I often just leave it wet and put it up in a ponytail. But on the occasions that I do, here I'm going to show you some tips basically on how you can make it slightly less tiring. Okay, well, the first tip then is obviously to partially towel dry your hair. I usually just sort of wrap it around like this, can't do the turban, and just leave it to dry for a bit, sort of while I'm getting dressed or having breakfast or something like that. Okay, so once it's towel dried, and I have to admit my hair has been drying for a while, but you can still see it's quite damp. People were talking on the long COVID group about losing their hair. So some of the tips that I got from my hairdresser Claire, the lovely Claire Fromage, is to obviously use a wide tooth comb if you combing it, or something like a tangle teaser brush, which just hopefully doesn't take too much of the hair out. And obviously one of the biggest tips there is to not dry it, to sort of save heat and styling while your hair is still sort of growing back. Luckily mine is quite thick anyway, and I haven't really noticed a huge amount of hair loss, but then like I said, I don't often style it, so that'll be why. Okay, so hair dryers, normal process is we're doing this, yeah, and your arms are getting extremely tired and heavy. So what my suggestion is, as you can see, I'm actually sat at my desk, which is potentially not where I'd always do my hair. I'd often do it stood upstairs or sat on my bed. But this way you can actually do what your parents told you never to do and rest your elbows on the table. And that means that you can hold in two hands, if you need, the hairdryer, and then rather than having to bring your arm up to your hair, you can bring your head down to the hairdryer. Okay, so I'll just do that for a moment. Okay, and as you get tired, you can actually just pop it down and have a little bit of a rest. Maybe don't comb it like this, just from the bottom up. Obviously, if you are worried about hair loss and you just want to kind of rough hair dry it just to get rid of the major damp, then you could use something like a snood or something just to pop over, and I am not going to film myself putting this on. Or maybe I will. Yeah, go on, let's try it. Okay, so once it's sort of relatively dry, you can then give yourself just a bit of a hairband, keep it off your face, and not have to worry too much about the styling. Especially if you're not going anywhere or got any Zoom calls. Okay, I am going to finish drying my hair off camera, and then I'll come back, and it's a similar process obviously with any other styling, so straightening your hair. But the key points really are to sit in a good posture if you can do, and to rest your elbows on so you're not having to use these muscles, and just sort of you'll be using your bigger back and shoulder muscles really to bring your head forward, and hopefully that will help just save a little bit of energy that you can then use on doing something else that you enjoy more. So as you can see here, if I need to, I can do it two-handed, or you can obviously use a lighter weight elbow. So my hair is pretty dry now, and obviously you can see it is quite thick, and it tends to go a little bit mushroom-like. So when I do style it, I usually do tend to need straighteners just to give it a little bit of a sleek. And again, this is going to be a similar premise, but one of the things that I do is, rather than having to obviously hold on to hair to get at your different layers, is use your grabby clips just to keep the rest of the hair in place. And that means, again, elbows on the table, and you can just do a section at a time. The other thing I do is I actually use a mug to store my straighteners, so that in between, when I'm resectioning, I can pop it down and I don't have to worry about it, sort of whether it's going to burn anything. Okay, so I just take the next section and go there. Okay, hopefully that's enough to give you some ideas of just how to make it a little bit easier. I said to some of the people in the group that I would mention makeup. Again, I rarely wear it, but it's the same principle. So you could have all your makeup in front of you, and then you can obviously do this while you're resting your arms, and actually it's really not taking huge amounts of my energy, whereas I would be hot and sweaty and panting and whatever else if I was drying with my arms up. So other sort of general tips really are to look at timing. One of the hugest things about sort of living and managing fatigue is planning your day. And if you know that you have to get to work, and that means that you have to get up, get washed, get dressed, dry, straighten your hair, you're going to be exhausted potentially by the time you get to work. So it may be that actually you wash your hair before you have dinner, let it dry, sort of towel dry over dinner, and then straighten it in the evening. So you don't have to do everything in the morning, and it will just be sort of finishing touches really to the straightening process. A few other key sort of strategies really are collecting everything that you need first. So bringing everything that you need to one area. You can pop that in a bag, so you put all your hair brushes and hair dryer and everything all in a bag, bring it downstairs, or obviously keep it nearer where you're actually going to do your hair, and that just limits sort of wasting energy going off to find something else. Some of you have kind of discussed having cognitive fog, so that's the kind of just that feeling that you're wading through treacle and you can't concentrate as well. So if you need during this time to rely on lists, just make yourself a little post-it note of everything that you need for when you're doing your hair, and then you can obviously just sort of tick it off really as you pop everything in your bag, and then make sure you've got everything. Other tips around sort of getting ready, if you do have to do some of this in the morning, is get those things ready the night before. Just so that, again, you don't have to battle with remembering and concentration when you're potentially in a rush in the morning. Okay, I haven't got them down here with me, I don't think, but occasionally I do get wrist pain, so you can sort of get splints that just sort of hold your wrist in a more functional position, because it tends to be when your wrist is like this that it then becomes more painful and more achy. So sometimes I will pop those on if I need them. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing my hairdresser again once things have settled. Yeah, have another trim. So that is drying your hair in a slightly more energy conserving way. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, then do pop them in the comments.